Tout ça, c'est pour expliquer les 5
piliers de l'islam. Tout ça, c'est pour expliquer les 5 piliers de l'islam.
Ah, ce n'est pas le Coran, c'est
mais c'est le Coran traduit à la main. Le Coran traduit à la main.
In Ethiopia, when our minds were still fresh and absorbent, we began to learn Amharic. Within a few days, Eskadar, our host, was marveling at our progress.
No, seriously, it's not like you just know all these words yesterday.
What?
When do you start speaking Amharic?
2 days ago?
No.
The truth is, I was impressed by us as well.
Menden,
Maybe.
ghee, butter, papach.
I had learned French and Arabic in school, but had never been tested in practice, and therefore did not consider myself linguistically skilled. Yossi picked up the gist of things by ear.
So wait, what's 4?
Arat. Yeah.
Arat.
He's smart.
But I found it necessary to take notes. My most memorable teacher was Aida, the wife of Ras Kawinseb, our host in Shashamene. Though Ras himself was cosmopolitan and multilingual, with a degree in German, Aida was not far from her native roots and spoke very little English. That, combined with her choreographic body language and readiness to communicate with me, made her my best teacher. One morning, I woke to find her doing laundry with a neighbor. They taught me the word for work in Amharic.
Yeah. Sera?
Work, sera,
Sera.
Amarinya. Work, English.
Sera.
And then I did something, the ethics of which I later questioned. I said, or tried to say, Ethiopian women have too much work. In hindsight, this seemed like an irresponsible use of language. A single female tourist, planting foreign ideas, the seeds of dissatisfaction, in her peers of a vastly different culture. But whether this concern was warranted or not, the women heartily agreed.
Too much. Girl, too much work.
Supplying me with a vocabulary list of chores in Amharic.
Clothes, food,
Also to make the bait,
bed.
to build the bait.
One bed, house, sera.
But the redemptive power of learning a language, I felt, was to bypass the West is best approach typical of foreign intervention in Africa. Of course, I couldn't speak any of the languages fluently, but merely by trying,
Tankara. Enchi Tankara.
I acknowledged that I was on foreign turf, and that it's at least as important for me to learn their language as it is for them to learn mine. In Mali, the situation was a little different. Once a colony of France, Malians from different parts of the country speak French between them, for lack of a common Aboriginal language. Yossi and I were quick to learn the greetings in Bombara, widely spoken in the central region, but my main focus was French, since English often didn't get me far.
Ça va? Ça va? Enchanté. Comment tu t'appelles? Comment tu t'appelles, Mr. Piggy?
I learned 4 years in school, but Mali was the first time I had to use it. Luckily, I found Malian French easier to understand than that of, say, my French host and his friends in Bamako.
Et maintenant, tu traduis en anglais. Vas-y.
Obviously, my French improved with time, so that I now have the experience of watching the videos I shot, understanding the words being spoken in them, while the Lola in the videos does not.
Hein?
Vous allez l'amener à Tombouctou.
L'amener? Qu'est-ce que c'est amener? Ah.
Invite you, artist.
Inviting artists? What? I didn't understand.
Language was sometimes a way to turn people into authorities. In Dogon country, I left the bustle of a weekly market to try to find a private spot to relieve myself. However, a group of boys latched onto me, starting with the usual solicitations for money and gifts. In cases like this, the language barrier was advantageous, and I embellished my ignorance.
Les mana.
Qu'est-ce que ça, mana?
Oui. Les
C'est-
Enfant.
Ça, enfant.
Oui.
Les enfants.
Oui.
Tu as les enfants de Dogon?
Oui.
Ah.
But they were happy to settle for giving me a lesson in French, pointing out things and their corresponding names.
Classe. Ça fait classe.
L'école?
Oui.
L'école? Wow.
In northern Mali, Arabic suddenly became useful, as in encounters with the Mauritanian population. It was interesting and catapulted us back home to the Middle East. We picked up no Tamashek, nor Sonorai, nor any of the other local languages. But there were certain words which were just fun to say, and became part of Yussi's vocabulary and lyrics whenever we had the opportunity to sing. I believe this tickled the fancies of all present.
Exodus!
In Ghana, I tried to pick up some Twi. I had already lost most of my drive and absorbency after a month and a half of touring.
Hello.
Especially considering that sometimes a 3-hour drive brought us to a region speaking a totally different language.
What Your friend was saying? Your friend was saying?
In every region, I tried to learn how to say praise God,
Nice. Example Mesgan.
a phrase which was useful in almost any context, and immediately established a tacit understanding. The other words I learned, phrases that served us day to day, were the building blocks to real relationships.
B?
Because to try to speak the language of those around you expresses so much more than the words themselves. I believe it gives the locals the amusement of seeing their own culture on a foreign body, rather than trying to fit into a foreign culture themselves, as is probably often their experience in the third world.